Hey everyone, thanks for joining in to another edition of the Bluecopa webinar. Joining today as is Sandeep SS and Raghava Reddy on the concept, talking about the concept of financial storytelling as a concept and how do you own the art of financial storytelling. Very honestly, right, we were debating as to what kind of topics do most CFOs and most financial leaders would want to understand, would want a deep dive on, and this got them most towards by default, right? So that's the reason why we thought of doing an exclusive session with none other than Sandeep himself. Primarily because, be it your leadership, your board, your potential investors, most of the people out there, when you're trying to convey something in terms of your financial metrics or your data, people expect it in the form of a story or something in cohesion. So there's more context to it, right? Now, instead of you explaining metrics as a random term or a random number, if you had a narrative attached to it or a business outcome attached to it, and there's a story that connects your key metrics, and then you're able to portray the outcome of the global intent of the business, right? That's always more preferred by all the people out there. And that's the reason we thought of doing the session today. A quick intro about Sandeep. Sandeep is the Senior Director of Finance at Myntra. He's also the Head Controller there. A chartered accountant by profession, by degree. He's also having more than 14 years of experience working across multiple industries, including IT, retail, healthcare, and so on. And specializing in business finance, Sandeep is also an extremely good storyteller. You know why he's here as well, right? And his peers actually quoted this. His ability to convert meaningless siloed data into purposeful business outcomes is what Sandeep does really well. So I think that statement says for itself. Sandeep, welcome to the session today.
Thanks, sir. Thanks for having me here.
Right, looking forward to the conversations that you and Raghava are going to bring up. Joining us again is Raghava, another familiar face in the finance ecosystem. Raghava is an established finance leader and one of the co-founders here at Bluecopa. Prior to Bluecopa, Raghava worked on crucial financial leadership roles across his career in the likes of Wipro, Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, and so on, and also has led the lending and wealth business unit at Open Financial Technologies. Raghava authors multiple financial publications and also is a coveted speaker in conferences like World Finance Forum and more.
In simple terms, we are a real-time finance observability solution. What we mean by that, we are single source of truth for all data and insights that finance teams will ever need. Right? 70% of the work that finance teams do generally is repetitive, manual, error-prone, data-centric. Our idea is to automate that part so that finance teams get more power to actually do business partnering rather than spending a lot of time in doing manual repetitive activities. Like the illustration that you see below, we pretty much integrate with all the different data sources in the organization, right? The larger data part, which is marrying siloed data into the pieces that finance teams would need, right? By cleaning up the data, transforming the data, and then giving outcomes that finance teams would really want to ensure they do the right business partnering is what we do in a nutshell. Move on, Guru. Okay, here are some of the highlights of Bluecopa, right? Like I said, we integrate pretty much with all the different data sources. At the moment, we integrate with 200 odd different tools across categories like ERP, CRMs, marketing tools, web spreadsheets, data warehouses. Think of a data source. We integrate with those data sources. So we have also interestingly taken a pre-integrated approach in our solution. What that means is that implementation cycles are very low, which means your time to value is much faster. Right. Also, the whole business ecosystems are getting disrupted big time with the increase in data volumes. Most of the businesses are becoming data centric, which means finance teams also will need to become data centric, which means real-time data, real-time analytics are going to play a key role, which is where we really come in. Again, we have a bunch of out-of-the-box templates, metrics, dashboard that finance teams can use instantly on the go whenever they need. And a couple of more points here. We are built for scale. We typically specialize in high transaction volume industries where the pace of growth is much higher. Right? Millions of transactions can be processed real quickly on Bluecopa platform, and security and governance are the key pillars of what we do, given it's all financial data. We're fully covered there. We are recognized by HFS as one of the hot vendors this year. We work with a bunch of customers again in the high transaction volume industries like retail, logistics, e-commerce, and high transaction SaaS businesses as well in some cases. So that's pretty much about Bluecopa. Okay. Guru set the context well, Sandeep, but I'll give my perspective as well, right? I typically at least interact with 10 to 15 CFOs each week. One common thing that often comes is that there is data, there is insight. How do I communicate it the right way to the multiple stakeholders that I engage with? And today's CFOs are not backward-looking CFOs, right? Which means compliance heavy. They're more forward-looking, which means you talk to your board members, you talk to other internal stakeholders within the organization, outside the organization. Bunch of things keep happening. So we felt it's probably a very, very relevant topic given the kind of disruption that's happening on data front within finance function. So see context for it. I'm glad we could have you. I know you personally for more than a decade, right? You worked across industries like Guru said. You worked in different leadership styles. You worked in huge data volumes right from your early days in FPN at Wipro. So you know data with insights and then storytelling to different stakeholders across different functions. The way you put across a story to a CFO would be very different from what you do when you talk to a delivery head versus you talk to a sales head. So you've done all of that, and you worked across different company sizes also, right? Large enterprises, mid-market companies, and then you went to startup which have scale. So you have seen multiple dimensions. So no better person than you we could think of. Thanks for for taking out time. Without any delay, I'll probably start putting my bias aside. I'll first ask you, do you think really storytelling is very important in finance function? If it is an yes or a no, why do you think so?
First of all, thank you, Raghav, and thanks to the team also, right, Bluecopa team. In my personal view, I mean, I have seen you guys growing from where you were, and I think the conversations when we picked up and post the conversations, immediately COVID came, right? I don't think we all want to remember what happened in COVID 2 years back. It was that was the impact it created. But from where you were to where you are right now, congratulations to you, and thanks for having me here. And a very warm good evening to all my good friends who have joined this webinar. I think that's a very easy question, right, Raghav? Yes or no? I mean, obviously it means yes. And not only for the finance professionals, right? It holds good for any professional in a leadership capacity, and not only from a leadership capacity, but also from any person who manages stakeholder. Apart from professional, I would say in the personal front also. Now, why do I say personal front? Let's take my own example here. While I have been in this journey, right, I have been observing myself in terms of the interactions which I have with my son. So he's 8 years old. And the moment I spend that 30 minutes with him to teach him maths, I can see the terror in his eyes, because I become frustrated, and in a moment's time I leave the room thinking that it's not possible. But the same topic, when my grandmother, we're very fortunate that she's also staying with us, when she teaches him, right, the approach that she takes in terms of getting a character, in terms of relating the daily incidents, that to maths, right? And the outcome of that is that he's very happy. He's able to solve the problems at ease. And whenever there are moments when we have to revise or make him revise, it becomes very easier for him to relate to that. So I think that's the difference between the approach that typically we, or in this case, I have gone through in terms of teaching maths as maths, which is purely numbers, vis-a-vis what, let's say, my grandmother has achieved in terms of doing it by using I would not say a story, but characters, which is in a way a replica of story itself. So I mean, that's the importance of how you can use effectively storytelling, not only in your finance profession but also in your day-to-day life as well. because I mean, to the point which you made, right? Today, the finance professionals, they don't play the role of a traditional function which used to present P&L. In the context of, let's say, Myntra and Flipkart, we don't sit on a table or a discussion just to present the data, because data is available. I mean, everything is automated. People understand numbers, business, category. Everyone understands very much what a number means. The discussion from a finance perspective or finance box happens in terms of what inferences you are able to bring to the table with the help of the data, and then what are the suggestive or the corrective measures that you have to suggest in a business friendly manner. So I mean, apart from, as I said, traditional ways of putting the P&L presenting, we have come a long way, and I think that answers your question. Yeah.
I think that's a fantastic story, right? I also have a kid, so I'll probably take a couple of points from what you said and see how it works. Super.
Yeah, man. I mean, you just try it. It really works.
Super. Thanks for those tips. We'll probably, since we established that, undoubtedly, finance folks also need to be good storytellers to communicate whatever, larger picture that they want to communicate with multiple stakeholders. I just wanted to understand what factors or, what are those probably 4 or 5 things that you need to keep in mind when you tell story, particularly from finance function standpoint, given there's a lot of data that gets into finance functions thought process, right? Generally, it's all data driven approach versus telling a story to start with and then backing up with numbers. It's the other way around for finance function. Just wanted to get a few factors that you think are really important in storytelling from finance team standpoint.
Sure. I mean, factors probably in terms of storytelling, right? So there can be many factors, and probably this will be very subjective. So what I think, key factors, probably I'll highlight that. But I mean, there are different materials available, there are different contents which are available, and basis that there can be various factors which one can come across. But maybe because of a limitation of time and what we have to use here, I'll probably put a perspective in terms of what I believe. I think the very first and foremost thing is that how do you understand the audience, right? What I have learned is that while the data set is same, but how do you present that data to a CFO, to your business stakeholders, and in your leadership capacity, when you present the data to your, let's say, your peers or to your team, and to the investors, right? It's a very different way of presenting or narrating a story while the data is the same. So understanding your audience, I think that impacts or maybe the first and foremost factor in terms of what conversations you have. Getting a contextual reference or a relevance to that. Now, what I mean by contextual relevance is that what is the, before you put on the numbers, right? And before you throw all the numbers in terms of your presentation, bringing the economic context of what that number means, what is the landscape of the industry, what are the impact on account of, let's say, regulatory requirements, and the main market trends. So giving a contextual reference in terms of what data you're presenting, visualization, right, in terms of what data do you select to present, whether it's numbers everywhere, or is it an Excel format, or it is some chart, infographics, whatever. I mean, what makes the data interesting? I think you have to figure out what that is. Like a simple dipstick, right? Today we do browse LinkedIn maybe 5 to 10 times a day, but I'm sure that we hardly go through some of the long written posts, vis-a-vis if there's any post or a presentation, right, which is, let's say, having 5-6 crisp points or 5-6 pages. I think everyone glances through them and tries to gather information in terms of what does that PPT means. So that's a difference in terms of how you use the data in terms of visualization. So, though both of them would be communicating the same information. Last as in, as I said, in terms of what I feel is how do you create an emotional connect in terms of your stakeholders with whom you're addressing your story or narrating the data or presentation, right? Let's put across a situation here, right? For example, let's say there is a situation where one HR comes to you as a CFO and asks for a budget. Now, what he or she does is that simply present the data in terms of number of employees, number of past employee, number of instances which happened in the past, so on and so forth, blah, blah, blah. And then he puts, he or she says that, no, this is the ask in terms of budget that you need to give to me. Now consider this situation versus a second HR who comes and uses, let's say, the instance of two employees, right? In terms of what has happened to the two employees, what are the hardships that they are facing, their family is facing, what did the company do to them in terms of the financial assistance, which will make the organization as well as the person who is the CFO here proud in terms of the activities which an employee organization does. And post that, if a HR asks for a budget in terms of his ask, I'm sure it will go through and no one will say no to that. So that's the context in terms of how two people approach a situation, use a narrative to get the things done. I mean, this is what happens in every situation or most of the situation that we handle in a corporate life. Just narrating that. Last thing I probably believe is very important from a factor for storytelling is how do you practice your pitch, right? While many people prepare the presentation, and what I was also when I was going through a journey, what I realized is that a lot of time spent on organizing the data, a lot of time spent in terms of making the pitch, but very less time spent in terms of practicing the pitch. Because the more you practice, you'll figure out that what are the things that you have to weed out, and the expected outcome also will be not different to what you would have expected. So practice your pitch. Yeah.
Amazing insights. In fact, I also completely agree with what you said. What I've personally seen also is that unless there's context, the point that you brought in, Sandeep, it's very, very tough for people to appreciate what you actually say. And one more, couple of points to work for me, starting with thinking from the other person's standpoint, right? If you're talking to a sales leader or if you're talking to a HR leader, pick up the areas of interest of those HR leaders and tally back the metrics or the numbers that you want to communicate with the areas of interest with these guys. For example, if you're talking to HR, like you said, which an attrition related point, if you can tally, right? For example, billing not being on time or, projects not getting renewed to the attrition, right? Eventually, which is what HR folk would be very interested in. I think things like that will really interest people. People really value the insight that you give. Great point there. And like you rightly said, it's also people related, right? It is not just the storytelling you need to associate with people, which means there's a lot of homework that happens much before you actually go and tell the story. I totally agree with you. I was one of the people who have initially not started, who did not prepare as much for a presentation, right? The way you want to tell the story. A lot of time goes into putting the numbers together, checking if it's right, wrong, all of that. But hardly any time is spent on how do you actually narrate the story so that you put across your point the right way. I think off late I realized that's even more important aspect in storytelling. So great point there. I also believe, right, it doesn't matter whom you talk to, very senior leader or very junior leader, or any junior leader or somebody working in your team. If you start practicing in a very structured way across all the different layers, it automatically, I think, over a period of say 2-3 years, it comes very naturally when you talk as well. Great points. I could really see a lot of personal things that could connect to what you said. Awesome.
Thanks, Raghav.
So again, just an extension to the previous question, right? Finance book generally, like I said, start with data and then eventually, based on how the whole discussion goes, gets into story aspect. Versus say if you talk to a marketing guy or a sales guy, it's generally the story that comes in first, and then it's backed by numbers, either fully, partially, and things like that, right? Again, purely from finance leader standpoint, given a lot of folks who joined this call or who listen subsequently, our conversations are going to be CFOs who want to be really successful in their organization. So purely from that standpoint, just wanted to understand, what do you think is the ideal mix of data plus storytelling? Should it start with data and then eventually backed by a story, or it should start with a story and backed by data? From your experience, right, from whatever you have seen, what do you think is the ideal way for it?
See, of my experience, data probably, let me put it in two perspective, right? See, data is the essence, right? And you need to handle data with utmost care. Why I say that? Because you are using that data, you're feeding that data in terms of your thoughts and create a story. So while in terms of consumption of data, it has to be robust source of data. There should not be any chance of error in that data, and you should ensure that later on the data should not be proved as wrong, because if that happens, then this probably leads to a trust deficit, or maybe a question on the image itself, because you have presented something in a format which was conceived in a spirit of what you have presented. So data is very important, but when you're to a question that what is the weightage of data in terms of the presentation, I'd probably say that it won't be more than 30 to 40% that you use your data to explain or put your perspective. 60 to 70% of the decisions which are made are more in terms of the narrative that you build and lesser on the data which would be available. I think practical cases, situations, or scenarios also, right, will be like very aptly put for an interview. While you have a role, let's say for any senior leadership, you will get people of similar background, right, in terms of education, in terms of qualification, CA, this much of experience, this many enterprises or companies that they would have handled. But once you have the discussion face to face with the founder or with the panel, that's the difference which a person creates through the narrative, right? So everything being the same from a data perspective, which will hardly be, let's say, 30-40%, but the balance 60-70% is where your ability of communicating and telling the story to the panel or to the person follows through. So that's how I will place the importance of data. Just to add to that, probably what I also think is that data should be only used to the extent which should be on a need to know basis. I mean, too much of data is also not good in terms of what people see or look at it and perceive in terms of what they have to take away. If you have to provide any details, it should be in the form of annexures, which can be referred later. Not everything should be put on the main deck, which essentially means that maximize more of your time on telling the story and minimize time in terms of putting the data.
Absolutely. I think fully aligned. 30 to 40% data balance. How do you put across the story is completely, in line with my personal experience also. Very well said, Sandeep. Again, an extension to the earlier point that we were talking, which is communicating the story to different stakeholders. Given finance leaders today get involved in external communications also quite often, be it your board, be it partners, be it external agencies and things like that. There's also a lot of expectation on the finance leader to be a really good storyteller, right? Including either the internal leadership team or from board perspective. One clear example that you gave is that you picked up the communication as one of the growth aspects at Myntra, right? Just wanted to check how has that journey been for you? The second is, what is the expectation from board or leadership team for subsequent promotions within the organizations, or how role expansion, right? How did that play in your case personally, and what have you seen in other cases?
Yeah, maybe I was fortunate enough to have those conversations or boardroom discussions, right? And even in my team, right, there's a lot of excitement in terms of what happens in the boardrooms, what are the questions which comes in, and I mean, probably in my Wipro as well as HCG experience, there used to be a lot of time which we used to spend on the storyline for board presentation. So see, typically what happens in terms of those conversations or those boardrooms is the data which is being presented more from a financial perspective, the ability which will help them to make decisions, right? That's, I believe, that first and foremost thing, which I probably covered in the previous question as well. And with the ability to make decisions, how you are able to convey some of the strategic insights along with the financial data. So whatever you narrate, you should also be cognizant of the fact that it is aligned with the overall objective of the organization in terms of whatever you communicate. Third expectation is in terms of the transparency, as well as the accuracy of the data, right? As I said, no point of time the data should be wrong. So a lot of time we used to spend in terms of maker checker validity, ensuring that the data is accurate, and from a transparency perspective also, right? In terms of the let's say the notes which are available, the type of data fact or data sheets which we used to prepare for the investors, the level of transparency, right? That's a confidence which anyone gets in terms of just by looking at the data. The classic case of this, in my view, in any IT organization is Infosys, right? The level of openness that they have shown in terms of their representation of data, balance sheet, financial data sheet. I mean, a lot of people have learned in terms of how to present the data using Infosys. No, fourth, in my view, is what are the risks and the strategies which can be used to mitigate those risks. Value creation in the process of whatever financial decisions that we make. Very important and crucial, I would say, is that what is the future outlook. It can be quarterly, it can be yearly, but the guidance in terms of how the future looks, and the representation from management, I mean, that is very important from a board perspective. And maybe, I mean, not the last, but as a point to be added, I would say that how do you benchmark and do a performance evaluation, which probably compares the organizational performance with your peers, and benchmarking it with, let's say, your past performance. It can be quarterly, it can be by and by. I think this is pretty much a format aligned in terms of those conversations which happens at the board, in terms of data storytelling and what do they expect from a finance leader.
Awesome. Here, I have an interesting story there, right? In one of our recent board meetings, our investor actually brought up this point that we typically have about 5 to 6 slides, not more than that, given the stage we are in, I'm thinking, right? He said, let's put an emoji for each of the slides, right? If it's a sales slide, I would see the emoji and understand if it's going well, not going well, right? Some slides were obviously quite happy slides where pipeline is getting built and things like that. Other slides where there is pricing pressure, for example, right? Is a sad slide. You don't have to go through all the content at a very high level, because end of the day, investors will go back saying, okay, the GTM is working well, the product is working well, or the implementation is working well. Right? So bits and pieces of that is what investors carry, irrespective of how granular we go in the discussion. But at a high level, whatever they would want to hear, I think just the emojis was really helpful. Apparently, that was picked up from Airbnb, one of their board meetings, and hopefully it becomes popular. Right? It's a very simple tactic to ensure investors understand just by looking at the slide, the description of the slide, and then just the emoji, what's happening, what's working and what's not working. So that was quite interesting.
Right, that's interesting. I mean, the way things have changed, right, from an enterprise to like the way startups work and the way investors also see these opportunities, right? And as you mentioned, now that you are part of that and experiencing in terms of your connect with investors, yeah, I think innovative and quite interesting.
Absolutely. And again, a lot of organizations are spending money, right, resources to ensure there's a lot of emphasis on how do you train soft skills, right? Because particularly at the leadership level, how do you ensure soft skills are there, so that coherence at the leadership level is very, very important, and that comes with clear communication. Same is the true with external stakeholder management as well. Just wanted again to hear from your side personally. At your level, you said you have taken a couple of trainings, right? At your team level, or subsequent teams that you work with, or adjacent teams that you work with, are there any best practices that you have seen, right, in terms of people picking up this particular skill set?
You're saying in terms of my team?
Yeah.
See, it's very important, right? Like as you grow up in the organization, how does your team is also picking up the trades in terms of these trades, right? Which I believe from the erstwhile or the way we have seen the traditional organizations vis-a-vis, let's say, startups, right? The way even the team or the juniors are equipped, right, to handle the stakeholders, to be part of the opportunities and challenges that they have to solve without any without any backing or a senior support. I think that has increased, which is probably one of the reasons why they are prepared, or they are the time taken for them to assume any of the leadership positions has also come down over a period of time. So that's what this culture has done in terms of the talent. What we have done in terms of, or what we as in me, Flipkart and Myntra, along with the sponsorship from our leadership, is that how do we encourage our team members from from equipping them, let's say trainings or workshops, by having external expert faculties, giving them coaching on the required subject, teaching them the techniques of how to do this. Post that, there's a lot of one-on-one sessions that we have, and feedback in terms of where they are improving or where they have to improve. Giving them examples of examples in terms of the content, what they should be going through as part of their L&D. Also in terms of some of the content, some of the materials which are available for them to read, and maybe the most important thing which I can tell is that how do you lead this by an example, right? So when you are having, let's say as a leader, when you have your town halls with the team, right, what type of presentations you take them through? I mean, is it the same in terms of data sets or in terms of storytelling? What we have done a little bit differently, I would say, and the way we have seen the positive response in terms of calling out the stories of people, right, who have contributed to the strategy and to the goal that we have, which we carry as an organization. So relating those stories, when we narrate them in the town halls, rather than just giving awards or presenting numbers, I think that resonates well, and maybe encourages others also to come forward and participate. So leading by example and incorporating, and the way the town halls are done, probably these are some of the ways I think we have figured out to ensure that even the team is also involved in terms of storytelling.
This is amazing, way that you guys are running it. In the interest of time, I'll just quickly summarize a few points, and then we'll take questions from the audience, Sandeep. What we have established here is that context is very, very important. Right? Do not directly jump into numbers. Set the context. No standalone numbers. Everything should be backed with context. Again, think from the end listener standpoint. Understand what their best areas are. Then back your numbers to ensure it tallies with the larger interest of the other listener also. Be very well prepared. Spend enough time in the way you want to pitch, in addition to the amount of time that you anyway spend in building the pitch itself, per se, right? Also, there is only 30 to 40%, generally 30 to 40% of the data angle in the whole storytelling. So it's equally important to structure your story, given it's the larger portion, which is at least 60%, right? Also, the last but not least, external or internal stakeholder relationship building is very important.
So we've got a few set of questions. I think both of you folks can give in your perspectives for this specific questions. To start off with, again, open floor for both of you to give your perspective. So when it comes to investors, how much impact does your story have or matter as opposed to the numbers?
Raghav, you want to go
Sandeep,
first? I do have I will probably respond after you do.
Yeah. So I'll probably split it based on the stage that you pitch in, right? I'll be very honest here. Given the stage we are in, it's predominantly storytelling, right? While we are probably backed only by 15-20% from number standpoint, it's predominantly storytelling. What's happening in the market, the trends in the market, how do we plan to differentiate, right? There are no hard numbers here in our case. Right. I think as companies mature, your percentage of data would increase, right? Which I think the example that Sandeep gave, or the data point that Sandeep gave, given his experience at Myntra and Flipkart, I'd probably in our stage it's 10 to 15%. It will keep increasing probably to 30 to 40 to 50% as companies mature. Is the answer from my side? Please feel free to add here, Sandeep.
So I will probably use an incident here to narrate, let's say, answer the question. see, from a this is no, I have also read this, and this is back in 2015, 2016, when the founder of SoftBank, Masayoshi Son, he was in India, and he was also, let's say, taking stock of some of the investments that he had to, like, he was evaluating for the new startups or new age startups, specifically relating to e-commerce. There's a question which was put on to him as well, that how do you identify where to invest, right? What is your magic mantra for that? So he also said that let me tell you an incident, and probably he narrated a story as well, which will answer this question. So what he said is that I have met many entrepreneurs, maybe 20, 25, before I met Jack Ma, right? And what I have seen in other entrepreneurs were that they all came with a plan, revenue plan, spreadsheet. They had projections, PowerPoint, everything was there. But when he met Jack Ma, he had no presentations. He was not even carrying a laptop. He just the passion with which he narrated his entire business model, how he's going to transform the entire e-commerce, possibility of making even remote selling from even a village. He was able to show his dream, and through his storytelling ability, right, it's a history now, and they invested. So that's the importance of data, how it is presented versus and a person who effectively conveys a story, and how does the investors looks at it. Because today also there are from the data available, there are only 10% of the startups which gets investment, and of that also not everyone succeeds, right? Maybe hardly one or two, but still they get the opportunity. They create they are able to present a picture or a story which helps them to get the funding. It's only after that in terms of how the management takes care of it. But yeah, that's the importance of story.
Awesome, master storyteller. Definitely Jack Ma.
But I think both of your point more or less overlaps, that given the stage, it depends. But again, your story is what has the inclination over the numbers when you're actually convincing an investor or a board. Perfect. Moving on. Great. So another question: how much of your story has to be about the present, and how much has to be about the future? Given majority of this storytelling effort happens during the planning and forecasting stages.
Sandeep, your question, man.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so I will again some of the sessions which anyone I suggest to undergo, which is Ashwath Damodaran, right? It depends on which stage of growth the company is, right? If it's a startup, it's a new age company, and there's no data to represent in terms of past, then it can be only future looking. But the narrative in terms of how do you ring fence your growth drivers, how do you identify the drivers which will make the business grow, and the confidence at which you can probably create those models. So it can be only future looking. But let's say in terms of mature organizations, right, where, for example, let's say healthcare setup, right, there are enough trends in terms of similar hospitals or similar such projects that you would have taken in the past, and there's always a data which is available which would help you that what has happened in such cases in the past 2-3 years. You can always put an average in terms of performing, non-performing, and do a scenario building. So it depends in terms of which stage of organization journey you are in. If it is somewhere in the mid path, or somewhere, let's say, almost in the completion of 6 to 7 years, and probably you have the data which you can use.
Yeah.
If it is a new company, then you will probably have to depend on the future story, and use that as more of your future as a mix rather than the past data.
Got it. I
fully
think
agree. Yeah.
Well summarized. Raghava, your thoughts?
No, I fully agree. I think Sandeep summarized it very well. We can move on to next question.
Got it. I think so. In the interest of time, let me just take a couple more questions. One, I think it's hyper relevant for this discussion. I think you folks have to chime in. How much does this skill help me in growing my career?
Let me take it up, and then Sandeep, please add to it. I think it's going to be super critical as you move up the ladder in the organization, right? It doesn't it is not function specific, like Sandeep opened up when he started talking. It doesn't matter if you're in finance function, HR function, sales function. I think storytelling is a very, very critical aspect. Even if you are, at a lower level at the moment in the organization, you still have to be a good storyteller. And only if you're a very good storyteller is when you move up the ladder. And as you go up, your data points or the number of data points that you work with will keep going down. You'll keep working only with very critical data points backed by very good stories. So that's a super skill that everybody should possess as they move ahead professionally. Sandeep, your points there?
Yes, sooner you learn, the better. I mean, so whoever asked the question, right? If you want to get, you see yourself in a position, let's say in 10 years or in 7 years or 5 years, you have to probably learn the skill the sooner. I mean, probably that's how I'll put it across.
Got it. I think even if you look at it very specifically from a finance perspective, right? So the ideal definition of a modern CFO or a modern finance leader today has this as one of its very core structures, right? So I think that way, if let's say if you are from finance, I think it's most definite. And even if you're from another function also, it still matters, because growing up the ladder, this is one skill that you don't want to miss having.
Absolutely.
Perfect. Yeah. All right. So we're about to take the last question.
One last question. Yeah.
So day-to-day operations suck out all the energy to work with a free mind. How do you prepare yourself for a CXO meeting?
Sandeep, it's yours, man.
Yeah, as I said, you have to define the priorities, right? Mm-hmm. There are certain meetings which, I mean, not all the meetings that you will want to go and present a story, but there are certain meetings which are very important. It is for anyone to prioritize how that how to prepare for that meeting. Yeah. It more occurs or comes to us that everything is important, right? So maybe before storytelling, I would probably encourage people to have the skill sets of how to prioritize rightly. And if the person is, let's say, an IC or a group, let's say manages a group, right? So deciding in terms of what to hold and what should be given to the team, so that he's able to focus on what he's supposed to do. Getting the house clean in terms of the hygiene of data. I think if that is sorted, then most of the people who end up doing in terms of the getting the data, I mean, I'm sure, right, most of the companies that you will be assisting as well, right? The major problem would be like, how do you get the data right at the time that you want it? I mean, if that is sorted, then probably the team will be spending less time in terms of getting the data and more in terms of how to narrate the story and how to present the data through different versions. You'll spend time to present the data in this way, that way. But the time which we used to struggle probably 5-6 years back in Myntra also, and the way we figured out in terms of how the team should equip themselves to get the data on time and spend lesser in terms of massaging the data. I think that's how we succeeded. Right. I'm sure that's the same strategy which others can also go through and have in place, which will help them to spend more time in terms of getting the ideas and thoughts together.
Gotcha.
Yeah, right.
Absolutely. Yeah, agree. No, I think I agree with Sandeep. Having processes in place to ensure your usual stuff is taken care so that your bandwidth gets freed up for you to practice, prepare, all of that is super critical. Also, as you keep thinking very structured way, the amount of time that you will start spending on thinking how do you tell the story keeps going down. It's a bit of struggle initially, undoubtedly. I think that is something that there is no alternate to that. You will need to pick up that skill by prioritizing this also as a very important aspect.
Yeah, I really liked one major insight that Sandeep's whole statement had, right? Which was, majority of the roadblock today in terms of the operations or the day-to-day activities is about how do you massage the data? How do you get the data to look it in a fashion where you can easily consume and make decisions out of it? So if that's being sorted, rest of them already the technology does the part, right? So your job is your time is much more freed up. So now you can focus on much more as a finance leader now. So I think that really hits the nerve with a lot of people who've joined today.
You'll not believe,
Awesome.
Guru, what had happened, right? Like same quarterly format which goes to the board, right? I have seen people working on the same set of data every quarter, same format, not being able to get the data on time, and suddenly we'll figure out that the data which went in the past was wrong. I think that part itself used to give nightmares. Forget about getting the data story in place. Getting the data itself in place used to happen a night before. I think that's a very maybe a hurdle in terms of getting the story right in terms of what you want to communicate. So probably I'll suggest that if that is handled from any organization perspective, things can be taken care of.
Right. I think that was a really good punchline towards the end of the session, right? Forget the story. I think the numbers need to match, man. All right. I think that was a really good end note for the fireside conversation we had. Thank you so much, Sandeep, and thank you, Raghva. I think the folks really had a very enthralling experience listening to your conversation. And thanks to everyone who joined the session today. We'll be doing more such webinars, in the coming weeks. Along with that as well, we're doing a few more physical events within India and in the Southeast Asian region as well. We'll keep you posted in our social announcements. But yeah, we'll look forward to meeting more and more people from the finance community and giving it back through a lot of information. But yeah, thank you, gentlemen. You have a great evening, and thanks to everyone who joined today.
Thank you. Thanks, Guru. Thank you so much, Sandeep. Have a good day. Bye.
Have a great night. Bye-bye.